I wasn't anticipating this video being 2 parts, so I've already blown all of my intro and outro ideas, and I think we'll just have to crack right into it. Number 5, Dumbland. This is the last take that's fucked, okay? When people try and say that this is good, they talk about it in terms of it criticizing the American dream or whatever. Again, I don't think that David Lynch is very interested in the idea of doing that. Maybe I don't see it because I'm not American, though, you know, given that all culture internationally has been annexed by the United States, I'm not American. Look, I think a lot of his attempts at broader comedy really don't work for me. On the Air is terrible.
Why did you put that damn what in me shoe?
Out Yonder, so fucking bad. Dumbland, it became so stupid that it wraps around to being good. It's not begging you to laugh at it or engage with it. It's very disconnected. It doesn't care about jokes. I think explaining this will be really annoying, so I'll just try and quickly. It's a type of comedy that you don't really see, where you do a dumb joke, like a joke that's too dumb to even really be funny at face value, and just goes over it to the point where it's ruined. So the content is meaningless, and then it just becomes more about the aesthetics of delivery than the actual punchline. I mean, all these episodes have proper punchlines, but there's no, like, the humor isn't in jokes. It's in sort of the stupidity of this thing. It's in the journey of it. It's just dumb, but then through the repetition you can actually pull it out into something that transcends. Yeah, I'm sorry. Number 4, Fire Walk With Me. This is a really interesting one. I think it marks a big turning point in his career. It's the most empathetic in terms of its characterization, and it's also the most combative to its audience. It's about the final days of Laura Palmer, so it has a everyone knows the ending. Laura Palmer's going to die at the end, which really lets us flesh out this character and this world. And I think in the original series, Laura Palmer was just like a storytelling device. You know, she wasn't really anything, and to go in and fully flesh out her character and really sort of focus in on it, it uses its time to twist the Twin Peaks world into something that is a lot more interesting. Twin Peaks was a very whimsical show about incest and this town's reaction to this death that they're kind of all complicit in, and it never feels like that, right? It is a very fun show. So Fire Walk With Me takes that and flips it and actually goes, okay, let's take a look at Laura Palmer, let's actually really empathize with her. It recontextualizes Twin Peaks because Laura finds you know, a release, an escape. David Lynch, like, he manages to give Laura a happy ending, even though, you know, we know where the story's going. It's a very interesting and nuanced dynamic where Cooper doesn't want Laura to die, but she, you know, accepts her fate, and that allows her to escape and transcend. And really, then the town is just sort of relitigating and in denial and sort of scrambling around finding clues and stuff for really no purpose. And it makes that entire show, you know, it literalizes Bob, and it really brings that horror undercurrent to another level. I don't actually think, other than the fact that there's not really jokes in it, it's pretty similar to all of the David Lynch episodes of Twin Peaks. I think if you just watched the David Lynch episodes of Twin Peaks, then went into Fire Walk With Me, there wouldn't be a very jarring shift, but a lot of Twin Peaks became this sort of, you know, just like wacky fun, and I don't know that that was something that he was ever interested in. He always had comedy, but it was in contrast to and to build on the underlying horror. And this is the underlying horror just presented to you. It's just got such a oppressive mood, and it's a perfect movie for if you want to feel terrible. Also, I think it's a bit of a bummer. I always thought it was Fire Walk With Me, which seems very evocative, like walking through flames, but it's actually fire. Walk with me. Asking some flames to go for a walk. Number 3, Lost Highway. I think this is the leanest and the coldest of the Lynch movies. You know, it's mostly told through action, and the action is very slow. The dialogue is very banal, but they sort of work together and create a tone, a very oppressive, horrible tone. I think it's the only Lynch movie that has a real ironic edge. I don't think on any level you're really meant to empathize with the protagonist here. He's a character who's destroyed by not being emotionally honest. As like a morality fable, it's like, you know, externalizing your emotions keeps you regular, which is a nice little, you know, that's like a good moral story for babies, but it's not really one that you see a lot of. And maybe it does have something sort of nuanced to say. I mean, I think it kind of looks at a midlife crisis and a deranged male fantasy with this sort of ironic lens. So it does almost offer like some meta-criticism on Lynch's own work. How intentional that is, I don't know, especially not from Lynch's part, but I do feel like those elements are in the script for sure. So it is a very cruel movie, but it is ultimately criticizing itself. So I think he gets away with a lot more in terms of sort of pushing out into this nightmare world without it feeling exploitative or overdone. It's probably my favorite looking of all of the Lynch movies. I mean, it's not particularly unique, but it is just so well done. And he makes a lot of good use of optical effects, a lot of lens whacking and lens flares, light leak and stuff to get across these ideas that any other movie you'd probably see a lot of visual effects work in here to sell this, and I don't think there is any. It's just all done optically, which is neat, but it is very effective. It's structurally kind of weird, you know. I think if you're going to try and divide it up cleanly, Act 1 to Act 2 break falls like an hour in, like almost halfway into the movie, and it really just sort of leaves things unresolved, but ultimately I think everything that you emotionally need to be wrapped up is wrapped up. I think the long Act 1 and the sort of truncated Act 3 really works. It's not traditional, and I don't know that it's particularly willful. I don't know that they planned it to go this way. Actually, I think they didn't. I think there's a lot of deleted scenes that would have fleshed out the Act 2 and 3. But the fact that it isn't really works for this story, because you don't actually want to be in this world. And it does sort of shoot out at the end before it's resolved, which leaves you in the exact emotional state that I think he was going for. And I think the worst thing is that, you know, for the first hour you get Bill Pullman acting his tits off, only to be replaced by Balthazar Getty, who does fine. Number 2, Blue Velvet. I like this movie, but it is fucked. I mean, when it came out, the criticism was that it was an exploitative movie. I think everyone who worked on it was cool with it, yeah, good relationships with all of his actors and stuff, so that's all good, but it is a nasty movie, and it does feel like a straight-up portrayal of the darker impulses of David Lynch's subconscious. Elements of this, like, you know, he finds Frank Booth a very funny character, and like it's based on him wanting to be a peeping Tom and stuff. It's like, this is fucked stuff, and it's just being presented as part of a normal narrative, as opposed to Lost Highway, where it's like, okay, this is within this character's dark and twisted fantasy. You know, this is like, just at face value, this is stuff that David Lynch likes, which is kind of fun. Now, at the same time, I think because of that, it presents to you something that you don't see. I feel like it really does just take you into this world, and it is something that you wouldn't see if David Lynch wasn't willing to put his subconscious on blast. So there you go. Since the movie didn't have an ironic framing, I've made one for myself. I think a lot of Lynch feels frozen in time, a lot of 50s elements and 80s elements. Obviously this was made in the 80s, so the 80s elements come from, but I think this feels the most sort of suspended in a reality that doesn't exist. At the same time, it does really portray a normal world. I think normally with Lynch, there's like a sliding scale of dream, but with this, I feel like it actually portrays normalcy alongside the Lynch stuff. And it really gives you a contrast that works very well. The weirdness works in direct contrast to the normal, and the whimsy makes the brutal worse. And then we pull out of the air and we get this ludicrous, mawkish payoff, which I do think is sincere. I don't think he's saying like everyone's fucked. I think we do pull out of that world and go back into normalcy. I think the cut of the movie really manages its tone. It really manages to give you enough to feel for the characters without pushing out too far. It would be very easy for, I think as an audience, you know, you pretty quickly hate Jeffrey, and it just manages to ride that line where you know he's a freak, but it doesn't quite tip over into you like completely going, yeah, fuck him, I hope he dies at the end. But I think it could, and it wouldn't have to go that much further for you to just like give up on that character completely.
I don't know if you're a detective or a pervert.
No, it's for me to know and you to find out.
But it's interesting. I mean, there's like an hour of deleted scenes you can find on here. I haven't seen all of it, but almost everything I did see, I thought, yeah, if this was in the movie, it would ruin it. Like, these are things that are fleshing out these characters or adding to the world in ways that just would detract from the story. And Lynch was actually contractually obligated to get it down to 120 minutes, so I don't even know if he would have done a cut that would have pushed things too far for me. I feel like it's actually a really lame pick for number 2 because it's so structurally sound. It's like, you know what's good? Normal movies. Like, if you wanted to map this onto the hero's journey, I'm sure you could hit all those beats. It really does feel like so well divided into a 3-act structure, and there's so much like clean setup and payoff stuff. Actually, there's a point where Isabella Rossellini drops a knife behind the heater, and in that moment I was like, the Chekhov's gun. At the end of the movie, Jeffrey's going to remember that, there's going to be a confrontation in the apartment, he's going to grab the knife, No, I was so surprised when it didn't happen. Number 1, Twin Peaks: The Return. Man oh man, what if you took all of the high points of Twin Peaks and just made a show like that? You know, it's shocking how good this is. They had like a tight budget and schedule, and a lot of the people returning haven't acted or have acted terribly for a long time, and it's just incredible that it all came together. It really shows such a mastery of storytelling, right? The structure, the narrative, the flow and the pace, the dialogue and the characterization, comedy. It's all, I think, unique and non-traditional, and also faultless. And it goes for such a wide range of tones and styles, and not only like succeeds at all of them, but seamlessly gear shifts between them. I think there are flaws with it, but none of them really affect the storytelling. Even in the weakest moments, it's more than the sum of its parts. So I mean, it has, you know, bad effects, and often it does feel like digital video. I think Fire Walk With Me was the best that Twin Peaks has looked. I didn't notice it when I watched it the first time, but on rewatch it does annoy me. The Red Room is ludicrously high key. I mean, I guess it's not like a mysterious place anymore, but it looks so great in Fire Walk With Me. It's so moody, and here a lot of the cinematography does look just very flat and very digital. And I think that's mostly probably just their tight shooting schedule. They had to just have a traditional TV studio setup, lighting setup, just for time. But a lot of the visuals do stick with you and are really great. And you know, I'm not like anti-digital video or whatever. Just in contrast to other stuff that he's done, it does feel a little flatter. And you can watch the behind-the-scenes clips of him describing what he wants the effects to be. And I think it's clear that he is imagining something a lot grander and something that you need a lot bigger budget for than what he was able to pull off. But I do like that sort of idea of just doing enough to get the idea across. And it does sort of show, you know, as long as the ideas are there, the execution, you know, it's forgivable. Especially compared to where you'd criticize like the Marvels for their effects work. They obviously have significantly better effects work and often, really incredible effects work. But it's still something that people criticize because there's really no purpose to it. But here it's like every effects shot is getting an idea across that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. It is very nostalgic. It is nostalgic, just straight up. There is your traditional reboot nostalgia bait stuff in here. But it always feels in service of the story, I think. And also, it's in contrast to the things that have changed. It's a very healthy nostalgia, right? Characters have progressed, the story's moved on, things are different. Obviously, I think this is where having one creator come back to their work, they have moved on and grown and developed, and it informs it in a way that is, still I don't think that it's saying too much. It's mostly just a good versus evil story. Pretty well done good versus evil story. I don't know, it's probably a little reactionary in the sort of way that everything's going to shit and technology sucks and stuff. I mean, it does sort of criticize itself. I think you could see the ending as being a criticism of the FBI protagonist and the idea of reaching into the screen to try and save Laura. If Fire Walk With Me 180 Twin Peaks, I think this then 180s it even more. I mean, it's interesting. I like the world of The Return better than Twin Peaks. When Cooper comes back, I mean, that's a big heroic moment, but I'm mostly like, damn. That second to last episode, it's like giving the Twin Peaks audience everything they want. And it's so awful because of that, and it's so deliberately done, but there is just this undercurrent of a terrible mood even before you get to the ending. I mean, that ending episode, it is incredible, just creating the worst vibes of all time, leading into just a perfect ending. So we leave Twin Peaks. There's really nothing out of place. Aesthetically, I have criticized some things, but it is everything you could possibly hope it would be. Also, Daria has a great bomber jacket. If anyone knows where I could get a bomber jacket like that,